Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters, and welcome to the second episode of DLC Dawah Live Chat here with you on SCDawah, also known as Speaker's Corner Dawah and Save Christians Dawah. We've got a new name for it. Now, this week we have a very special guest with us, Brother Mansur. And just to let you know, as with the last week as well, you will be able to submit your questions to ask Brother Mansur here in the chat. So the chat and the live stream is where you can ask him questions about Dawah, his studies, things of that nature, and he will answer, inshallah. Now, Brother Mansur, how are you? Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to have you here. Last week, so many people did not ask, but demanded we bring you on this week. So, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you perfectly fine. Alhamdulillah.
How are you, Jaz?
Well, as you can see, I'm in the sun. Alhamdulillah, here in the beautiful West Indies. How is sunny, beautiful London?
London weather is very unpredictable, as you know. It
Yeah.
was very cold. It was snowing just a few days ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw a few videos of that, but it doesn't seem like much justice here. I hear Canada has got it a lot worse. Now, Brother Mansur, how long exactly have you been going to Speaker's Corner to do Dawah for?
Very interesting question. Do I actually remember? It's been a very, very long time. So maybe in the 90s, early 90s, or even earlier, maybe, I don't know. But definitely late 90s, because this is when we're setting up IslamicAwareness.org, our website, specifically responding to some of the polemics that were coming from Speaker's Corner, and especially to do with Orientalism and others. Yeah, so in the 1996 is when we set up, roughly around then, the website. So, I mean, I remember from there, even before we were going, but sure, from those times, it's been a long time.
Well, I mean, I didn't even exist in the early 90s. So to know that you guys were there doing Dawah and setting up a website by that time just blows my mind. Now, a lot of people may not know this, but Brother Mansur and I have known each other for quite some time now. And what people may not realize is that his persona, as you see him debating in Speaker's Corner, is slightly different from the loving guy that I know, because he gives two kinds of love: kind, beautiful love, and tough love to the people that he debates. So, Brother Mansur, a lot of people like your debating style. They like the way that you're firm in your Islam. You don't give an inch to the people that, have negative polemics against us. You're very academic, you're on the point, you don't get personal. Is this a habit that you've developed over the last couple of years, or did you have to learn to become this way?
I think this is something that you have to learn. You must learn to develop yourself. So when we went to Speaker's Corner, I mean, I remember when I went there, I mean, I wasn't speaking. For the first time I went there, I just went as someone just like a visitor, looking around, and it was a brilliant experience. It was a very interesting experience where you see a totally different area, totally different kind of atmosphere. And then, you had to get the courage to speak, because not everyone can speak naturally. Like, if you can't just assume someone can go on a stage and give a lecture, for example. So even Speaker's Corner like that, I mean, if you didn't know your subject matter that you were discussing about, and people are talking about this, then you won't be able to talk about this at all. So from gradually, I think over the years, once you know what subjects are being discussed and to what level, and how much you know and how much you don't know, specifically, I think this is important, but people often don't realize how much we don't know. And this gives you an assessment of your own self, that how much you need to develop yourself and your learning. And then the more you learn, the more confident you get. Of course, as Muslims, because we have a solid, rational, intellectual foundation of our faith, so it doesn't matter when people bring in all this shubuhat, all these different doubts from different angles, whether it's from history or from the text. Your faith doesn't shake. What your only concern is, I've never heard of this before. I mean, what is this about? I mean, because you're not really learned in all the subjects. Someone brings in, for example, Bukhari's manuscripts. I mean, this is a specialist field. So all we do, and all we should be doing, is simply asking this question. Okay, that's interesting. Let's go and find out a bit more. This has been the approach throughout my time in Speaker's Corner, and obviously, when you look more into it, the answers are there, and alhamdulillah, we are fortunate enough to have the answers done by our ulama already. May not be accessible in the English language, but they are available in Arabic and or other languages already. It's not a new thing that people bring as people think. It's been something that's been there out there, and somehow our critiques suddenly discover, or rather rediscover, these polemics and then bring it out to the public. So yeah, if you were to summarize one sentence, no one starts perfect. You learn and you develop, and then you have now this way of approach where your foundation being very solid. Whatever criticism comes on your way, you can actually deal with it. So that's how we should be taking it, every single duat, in my opinion.
Well, Brother Mansur, a lot of people will also not know this, but you were the person that I came to I met at Speaker's Corner, basically, my first time there. And you didn't just leave me to the wolves. Took me by the hand. You said, well, you can talk with these people or these people just to get your feet a little bit wet, because a lot of people think that they can just walk up and jump into a conversation, but there are a lot of unspoken rules. You need to know some of the people. You need to know when to intervene. Otherwise, you would just be seen as a heckler, as we know of a very infamous Christian group there. But the point is, you took me by the hand. You walked me around the park. It was a beautiful thing to me. And the very first conversation we had was with American lady, I think, no, a British lady, a Christian British lady, telling us that Muslims don't belong in Britain. Meanwhile, she's talking to a British person like yourself and someone from the Caribbean like me. I'm like, she doesn't get the accent as yet, but alhamdulillah. A lot of people also would not know. At the end of that conversation, I brought out the verse from, I think, 2 Corinthians chapter 6, where it says unbelievers can't have they're not supposed to have unequal yokes with each other, meaning that the Christian must always be dominant in whatever they do. And I believe, brother, one of the other SCDawah channels did upload the clip where she denounces that verse from the Bible. So my first interaction with you at Speaker's Corner ended up with a Christian lady denouncing and rejecting a verse from the Bible, and that was something I will never forget. Now, Brother Mansur, the questions are actually pouring in. I'm looking at the screen, and let me tell you, it's like a flood. I'm going to be honest with you. One of the questions people seem to be asking is, you're from the subcontinent. Are you from the subcontinent? Is that something you wanted to discuss?
I am from the subcontinent. Yeah, I am.
Any specific?
Sometimes you'll notice that often when people ask questions about where you're from, I mean, maybe it's not been on the camera. I mean, like, I'm from planet Earth. I may have said this occasionally, because when things are not relevant, people ask just to deflect a question often, where you're from and so on. But if it's a friendly chat where people want to know where you're from, background, because your background may have some influence in your outlook, in your thinking, that's fine. Yeah. So often I say I'm from Indian subcontinent, not to narrow it down, because once you go there, oh, are you from this particular area? And then they move into that subject matter about the geography and so on. And when I don't see that there is any concern or problem, I will say I'm from Bangladesh. Yeah.
Subhanallah.
That's where I'm from.
I didn't actually know where you were from, because the first time I met you, we met in a Malaysian restaurant. It has never occurred to me to ask you where you're from, but a lot of the young people in the comments do seem to like that. And alhamdulillah, we have a lot more comments coming in. Thank you, brother Farhan Ahmed, for your donation. So one of the questions that someone here is asking is, question, who do you look up to in Islam as a scholar in modern times, and where do you see yourself in the future, Brother Mansur?
Very difficult question.
Yes.
Both of them very difficult question, especially when you say who do you look up to as a modern scholar in modern times. Yeah. That means you have to be really up to the scholarship of modern scholars, whether they be in the English language or Arabic language or any other languages, be that for matter. I personally don't have any particular following of a scholar at this moment. I think every scholar deserves an attention if they're really a scholar of that caliber, because everyone can contribute. And of course, we don't want to, look up to scholars who we know they're deviant, they're totally gone off from the Jama'ah of the Muslims. I mean, if somebody says, I don't believe in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, is the last prophet, and they claim to be Muslims, as a Muslim scholar, of course you're not going to listen to them, only as an academic interest what they're bringing forward. So you have to be in the boundary of your faith, of the Islamic tradition, and to look up to the scholars. I personally don't just go for one particular scholar. I would like to benefit from more scholars that are out there, whether it's in English or Arabic. The knowledge is out there. You just need to filter the information. I think I just leave that question there because I'm not particularly into a particular scholarship manhaj or anything.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
When it comes to myself, I see myself in the next few years or the next few decades, or even until I live, just carry on who you are. I mean, I'm focused on something that I love, something that I enjoy, giving dawah and learning at the same time. So I don't see myself as someone who thinks I need to go and upstage myself and, save the world, so to speak. That's the job and the role and the duty for the scholars. Yes. We are not scholars. I think this is one thing that we need to clarify to our brothers. Assalamu alaikum to all those who are joining in our chat. We are not scholars. We are duat. What it means is we are just spokesperson of Islam. We're representing Islam as much knowledge that we have and as much ability and capacity that we have to represent. That's all. So we shouldn't think of ourselves as scholars. I should go into the next level where, people call me a sheikh and so on. This is the time where people need to understand that, we are not sheikh or shuyukh. We're not scholars. We're simply, some lay Muslims just taking our own initiative, our own, passion, if you want to say, to bring Islam to the people and bring Islam to our own selves. That's all.
That's a really beautiful way to put it, Brother Mansur. As you know, I call myself Brother Ijaz, and I've had people coming up to me saying, why do you call yourself brother? Why don't you call yourself Ustad or Sheikh? Because I'm Brother Ijaz. That's who I am, So the way you put that message, I think, is something that people need to learn from. That is an example of humility right there. We do have a message from Ohud Odin, and may Allah reward him. He gave us a donation. He has a message for you specifically, Brother Mansur. Hello, Brother Mansur. You are a very motivational person whom I love to listen. And I'm seeing this message all over. There's another message by Zafar Hussein. You are one of the reasons that I am a better Muslim today, Brother Mansur. So it's from all over the world. We're getting messages from the United States, Egypt, Indonesia, Malaysia, Ethiopia. We have more than 210 people watching right now. So alhamdulillah, they're just flowing in. So Brother Mansur, another question. What would be your funniest moment? Yeah.
I've just lost you there for a fraction of a second, but you're back now.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah. What would you say has been your funniest moment while at Speaker's Corner? It's an incident you remember?
I think there are so many funniest moments. I mean, the one thing that what often our brothers or sisters don't realize is this: there are only few clips or few conversations that gets recorded. There's so many other conversations that don't get recorded because either we don't want cameras to come and interrupt because then the discussion doesn't proceed because other person may not be very interested in to have a live recorded conversation where people can see them, or often they just simply don't want to have any kind of recording of them for whatever reason. So there are many moments. I think one of them was when there was one particular Christian we were speaking to, and then he called himself the biological son of God. I'm not sure whether you've seen this.
Yes.
I mean, I was like, what am I going to say? I mean, I lost my words.
You walked off. You looked at the conversations over.
I lost my words. I mean, how can you deal with someone at this level? I mean, so that's that. I think this is quite funny because obviously that person knows he's just making it up, because that's the logical conclusion of the discussion, that he has to be like a biological son and so on. Yeah. Yeah, there are other moments where but you see, funny moments is something that I would try to understand in a different way, because we're not there to entertain people. Yeah,
Mhm.
entertainment happens because of people's funny behavior, because of what they say. Can you hear me still?
Yes, we can. We
Or
can.
okay, it's just I can't. Yeah, sure. So if we go by this intention of having entertainment there, I think that's the very wrong intention. So we go there with the intention to at least take Islam to the people. Okay, so we can present Islam so people can see, hear, people can understand, people can reflect a bit more on it. Never for entertainment purposes. So we don't go with the intention of finding someone like, I'm going to speak to this particular individual or that individual, or wait for people to come and let's have some entertainment out of it. Unfortunately, what happens is during the course of the discussions and conversations that happens, some people, as I already mentioned, behave in a very inappropriate way, and it becomes very funny, and people think that's how it's meant to be. Actually, it's not something that we want, because we want a serious conversation. We want people to have a very serious reflection on the discussion that we have. Yeah, but as a byproduct, if some entertainment comes through, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, that's why we just leave it on the side. And as you probably noticed, I mean, I often just leave that, don't join in this fun and
Yes,
carry
yes,
on, because that's never the intent. Because if you intend it this way, then you're not doing dawah in the first place.
indeed.
Yeah.
Well, Brother Mansur, there is one funny moment I think I need to mention. And
Mm.
it actually happened with me last year, November, where technically you saved my life because a missionary was trying to hug me. And out of so there's a really popular, infamous quote that you made that people just love to repeat to me. I get messages with it almost every week. And so, just to give a quick background, I'm having a debate with a very aggressive missionary.
Right.
And at the end of the debate, she proceeds to walk towards me and hug me. The problem is, I'm not really thinking that she's going to hug me. I just see this lady walking towards me, and it's almost as if it's in slow motion. Her hands begin to go up, and then I feel a tug, and I look, and it's you, and I'm being pulled, and I hear you saying, first she wants a handshake, now she wants a hug. What comes next? And people love that. They love that quote. That killed me because I looked back at it and I can't stop laughing just thinking about it. You saved my life that day, so thank you very much, Brother Mansur, for what you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah,
Nail
I'm
of it
glad.
was.
I'm glad you enjoyed the discussion that you had in Speaker's Corner. It's a different world.
Yes, it
Speaker's
is.
Corner is a different world.
But the
For
thing is,
those who don't know.
yeah, but then the conversation comes back to things like consent. Is it appropriate for women to randomly run up and hug Muslim men at Speaker's Corner? I look back at it and I think to myself, that was wildly inappropriate from that individual. But may Allah guide them. It's just the way things
I mean.
happen.
Imagine
Now,
it was reverse. Imagine you were
oh,
doing
oh,
that.
hashtag sexual assault. Muslim
Yes.
goes wild at Speaker's Corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Allah guides whom He wills. And this specific missionary uploaded a picture of her hand on the internet claiming that Muslims bruised her at Speaker's Corner. And we couldn't see anything like that. So, oh, these people are crazy. But we do have another question, which is it's come up 3 times so far. How
Mhm.
can we as Muslims demonstrate Islam to be the truth?
This is a very, very important question. Okay. How can we as Muslims demonstrate Islam to be the truth? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, quite simple. What do you think? Shall I ask you your opinion? Or let me tell you very
Yeah.
briefly, and then you can
Okay.
add your say.
Okay.
Something that is truth that manifests itself. Remember the Quranic ayah that there is no compulsion in religion. What does it follow with? قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. Truth stands clear from
Falsehood.
falsehood. So all we have to do is present it. So if you present it, by the presenting itself, it will be evident to the people that the truth lies within what you're presenting. Because
Mhm.
one thing is, say we want to provide a demonstration of something, that means it requires a lot of logical arguments, a lot of evidence to back this up. But the beauty of Islam, the simplicity of the Islam is the evidence is so simple, so clear, so unadulterated, that you just need to present it. And this is what used to be during the times of the Sahaba. If you remember the stories, they saw the Prophet ﷺ. He preached to them, he conveyed the message, conveyed the call. That was all that was needed, because there's quite a few elements. One is his character, of course. They knew that he's coming from someone who they can trust and rely, and someone who they know to be. Are you there? Yeah.
Yep, well listening.
Yeah. Who
Intently.
they know is a trustworthy individual. So when that trustworthy individual tells you something with a history of none of those that we see today, people's lack of good character, a lack of integrity, he was the most upright person. So all you need to do is present yourself as someone who is a good Muslim. Then people know that you are a good Muslim. And when you say that this is what I've got, so your argumentation is not necessary. You are going to just present Islam, because remember, there's three elements, isn't it? You have a recipient that needs to receive the message, right?
Yeah.
You have the message itself, and you have the one who conveys the message, the sender. If the message is clear and the recipient is understood, recipient is, character of the recipient is acceptable and not disputable, then the recipient doesn't have a problem with it. You don't need, some,
Yes.
very strange, convoluted, with semantics in terms of presenting your argument.
Yes.
You don't need to that. So how do you present Islam and demonstrate Islam to the truth? Okay, few steps. Okay, we have to modify ourselves. Yeah, we have to modify ourselves. We have to assess ourselves. Are we presenting it as we should present to people who can be amenable to this message? If they know that you are a person, like, as you can see, some unfortunately the behaviors are not very good in Speaker's Corner, and they want to present themselves as Muslims, people will take them as entertainers. That's all. So they're not going to take in the message. We have to learn ourselves. This goes message to me first. Yeah, this is an advice to me sincerely, that we need to mold ourselves to the Islamic character, and then we have to present something that is so clear that we need to know this clear message. How many of us are trying to present Islam not knowing what it is? So when Allah says He is one, I mean, why are we going to confuse and say, no, yeah, Allah exists? Yeah, he's like, some people try to be universalist, to somehow maybe just to bring people in. No, just say it simply. Allah is Ahad. Allah is Wahid. But you need to know that He's Ahad and He's Wahid. If you don't know, then how can you present it?
Indeed.
And then present it in a way, I mean, I'm lacking in this. Yeah, so I'm trying to develop myself in a way people can accept it. So when Allah says, "Ud'u ila rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'idati al hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan." So invite people towards Allah with what? With hikmah, with wisdom, with maw'idat al-hasana, with beautiful preaching, and argue with them in a way that is best, that is better. Okay, so having understood the message that we're going to present, we have to present it in this way. And once this is presented, inshallah, people will accept it. All we need to do is follow this line of thought, that yes, we need to present it in a way that our response, whatever we say, will be listened, will be taken into consideration, people will accept even what's coming from us. And then the material or Islam that we are presenting is to be in a nice way. So if we just give him in a very harsh way, like I often do, I pray all the time to make myself humble and not harsh, and not to be angry, not to be aggressive. Then people will not listen. People will not even appreciate. And then you present it. Of course, there are different kinds of people, recipients. Some requires just a simple explanation. Others requires very detailed explanation with logic, with evidence, with science. So you have to gear to the recipient how much information they need, and leave it to Allah. The result is not what you should be thinking about. You are only conveying and passing on this information. Yeah. If you were thinking about just results, then we need to really think about, like, what are our intentions. No one is able to guide.
Allah guides.
You cannot guide Ijaz. Our Prophet ﷺ couldn't guide, as Allah said. Only Allah is the one who guides. Okay, if
Indeed.
Allah gives us the ability, people can then take in the information that we have provided, and that's all.
Indeed, and I absolutely agree with you. One of the things that people don't understand is, even if the Dawah at Speaker's Corner was there before the cameras, so you guys aren't doing Dawah for the cameras cameras came after the fact. A lot of people tend to miss that. Although I'm not sure you guys had really good cameras in the 1990s, right? I wouldn't know myself, but you guys wouldn't know. Now, like I said, we have a lot of questions coming in, more than 230 viewers at this point in time. 25 minutes have gone already, and we just have the questions piling up. So here's another one. We heard that you had a trip to Turkey recently. How did it go? And are you looking to make more Dawah trips internationally in the upcoming future?
Yes, we've been to Turkey recently with quite a few of brothers together. It's an amazing trip. I mean, I quite enjoyed being in Turkey. I mean, people are nice. I mean, unless you go and meet the people, you don't really appreciate how people are. And that's why one of the things is, when you travel a lot, it broadens your mind. It really shows that there's so much we need to learn. You may have some expectations, but you may have also some bias or prejudice about people. I'm not saying Turkey, I'm saying anywhere you go. And this goes for everyone. When people think like, oh, Middle East must be really, I'm talking about the Western mindset.
Yes.
But when they actually go there, what do they see? They see the real people. They see people in the streets. They see people how interact with them. And I had the experience of seeing, I mean, I still sometimes, reflect back, and some of the brothers will remember, we were just walking along, a few brothers together, and someone who polishes shoes and so on, right? What do you call them? Yeah. Shoe shiners. So as he was leaving, I think one of his brush fell, and one of the other brother noticed it, and he just called him and said, okay, you've dropped something. Of course, we said that in English, and he doesn't understand English, but the environment is such that it's quite easy to understand what happened. So he picked it up, and then as he went, and he came back again, and he wants to now, thank us with so much gratitude, so unbelievable. This immediate connection just because of this. I mean, look at this individual. He could have just left like this. He wants to polish all our shoes. Can you believe that? But for free.
Whoa, really?
I mean, it's amazing. The gratitude that comes. I mean, this is just all natural. So beautiful experience. And of course, we went there with Muhammad Hijab, who had a talk in the university on liberalism and the effects it has on the Muslim society. So we went together. I think it's important that we, brothers from Speaker's Corner, also were involved in Dawah. If we are able to just go to different countries where we can actually share our experience, we can share what we know, we can share the common understanding of the issues that are concerning us, especially with Speaker's Corner. I think one of the things that people don't realize is you meet people from all backgrounds, all kind of mindset thinking, from people who think they don't exist, they're speaking to you. Yeah, we have hyper speak like this. They actually tell you, I don't know whether they exist or not, in front of you.
What?
Yeah. To this kind of hyper skeptic person, to individuals who thinks like they're God. Yeah, that's how the level, and people come up with their different ideas and ideologies and thoughts, and you learn from each one. It's a learning university by its own right. And once you understand that, okay, these are the different mindsets in operation who think about religion, Islam in particular, then you
Yes.
know the mindset that is operating around the world, because they're not just a small group of people. People from all over the world come to Speaker's Corner,
Yes. Yes.
and they somehow share their views. Once you know these views, you can actually then move forward, and you can take it forward and share these views with others. And that's what we noticed in Turkey when we went. Um, Brothers loved it. The talk that Hijab gave and the interaction that we had as brothers, it's an amazing experience.
SubhanAllah. And are you looking to make more Dawah trips internationally? Is that something?
Inshallah, if time permits. The only problem is, we would like to,
Yes.
but we are busy with our full-time job. Yeah.
Yes.
We're not doing that part-time, but of course, to go away uh, to a different country and so on, you have to take time off from work and so on. It's a logistical issues. But if things are facilitated, then of course, inshallah, we'll be more than happy. We'd love
To be.
to visit, not only just to share experience, but to meet the people, meet our brothers and sisters out there, and then we learn from each other. I think that's one of the things that we're missing. We're not learning from each other enough.
Indeed, and as you would know, right after I met you, actually, I went on a speaking. They had a speaking event in Hong Kong, and while I was there, I met Muslims who loved you guys. You specifically, they asked about yourself and Hashem, Brother Muhammad Hijab. They spoke about the Dawah that you guys do at Speaker's Corner. So it's reaching even, just to be clear, where I live in Trinidad, on the direct opposite end of the earth is Hong Kong, which
Yes.
would mean that people on the opposite end of the earth to me hear and listen to you guys. So subhanAllah, the Dawah is international, and alhamdulillah, Speaker's Corner in some way has facilitated that. We do have a question to you from an individual, brother Muammar Blazovic. May Allah reward him. He also gave a $5 donation. He says, "Salam, brothers. Why are black dogs, according to the Prophet peace be upon him, considered a shaitan or a devil?" Would you know the answer, brother Mansur?
Could you repeat that question? Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't hear
Why
properly.
are black dogs considered devils?
Why are black dogs? Wow, very interesting question.
Yes.
I don't think all black dogs are devil. As far as my understanding goes, that there are specific dogs that were around that Prophet was alluding to, because we know shaitan can impersonate other creatures, right?
People think.
Yeah, other creatures. So that was referring to that particular shaitan which impersonated. It doesn't mean every single black dog is a shaitan. So if you think about this way, then you would realize it's actually a contextualized event.
Yes.
Yeah. Just like many of the things that Prophet Islam said, we have to also look into the context. What context did he say that? And then you can see what the answer is.
Perfect. Beautiful answer. In other words, you look at the logic behind the question and you answer the question in a way that puts the context of the hadith in the minds of the people. A lot of people tend to forget that there are commentaries written on a hadith where the scholars have explained even up down to the minutia about even the word order in certain hadiths to give the meaning of it. So alhamdulillah, Jazak Allah Khair for your beautiful answer, Brother Mansur. There's another question, which is, do you have any book recommendations for our viewers
Book recommendations for what subjects of
on the
interest?
Quran, Islam, things of that nature, really? People who are interested. So I guess the question is basically asking, you have Muslims who want to get to know more about Islam. What books would you recommend? And on the other hand, what about books for people who have never known about Islam, non-Muslims who have been influenced by the media, for example?
I think they're asking very, very important questions.
Yes.
Yep. But unfortunately, we haven't done a collation or collection of the lists to help our brothers and sisters out there. I think this is something that's lacking yet. Personally, we may have recommendations. I know some brothers who recommend books if you're interested in Christianity, for example, whether Christian history or Christian textual criticism about their Bible and so on. There are also book lists available in terms of if you want to learn about Islam on itself rather than trying to go into apologetics. One is learning Islam to learn why we believe and what we believe in, so that we can practice Islam. Okay, as Muslims, we need to learn. Okay, this is something that is essential. There are things which are absolutely necessary for us to know. These are called something that is known by necessity in Islam. When it comes to like, if you are going to get married, you have to know all the rules and regulations about marriage. If you're going to go to Hajj or Umrah, same likewise. So there are recommendations like this in terms of different levels. So you have a beginner's level, intermediate levels, and advanced level, and you can pursue, because there's no end to learning in Islam, where you can spend whole of your lifetime and you won't be able to, come to, a few drops on the oceans of knowledge in Islam. I mean, this is literally how vast the whole Islamic knowledge is. But for your everyday life, you can actually learn what you need to learn. There are other recommendations. I'm not giving you any list yet. I'm saying there are lists that are available where you can see, okay, if you want to go into apologetics or into Dawah, especially, what books you should learn, whether your interest is with atheism, Christianity, Hinduism, secularism. There are various interest fields, and each field requires specialist books that you need to study. Because imagine, just to highlight this, imagine you are going to speak to or with a professor of biology on evolution, and you never studied biology at school, college, or university in any level, right? How are you going to discuss with this particular individual? You're not going to just use street language and say, you know what, evolution is not true. And you can't really approach this way. You have to have enough knowledge to have a conversation on the subject who's a specialist. Yeah. So we should know our limitations. Okay. If this list tells us that we should know our limitations, from our limitations, we see what we can actually expand our knowledge on. Yeah. It's most likely going to be an area of your interest. So if you're interested in that particular area, then go in and learn more. Now, you can't go and pick up a book. Say you want to learn about something in physiology, how things work in a body system, in a human being, for example. You can't pick up a medical text book really designed specifically for medical students and start learning from there when you haven't done biology on a college level. Okay.
Yes.
So we have to look out ourselves and say we need to start step by step. Knowledge needs to be acquired step by step understanding, otherwise we won't be able to understand it. So coming to the list now, there aren't many lists that are available. So I think this is the time, Ijaz, okay, the responsibility for the different organizations that are collating and combining and networking to actually have that available, where we can recommend, because I've seen some of the list already in Arabic, for example, and English, especially with Christianity. We need to make it in a presentable way, maybe in your website, maybe in SCDawah, his page, Facebook page, and others, and group them accordingly of interest. Just learning about Islam, this is what you should start with. You want to go into this particular area of interest, this is what you should start with. There isn't one that I can actually pinpoint. There you go and read this. We need to make one, I think. What do you think?
Well, I absolutely agree. And well, to answer the question in a different way, although I do agree with you, it's their personal favorite book that you have, other than the Quran, that you would recommend for someone that just generally they would like to begin reading? Anything in particular, a favorite book that you have?
Yeah, I avoided that question, didn't I? I mean, I like books in Quran and Quranic studies, especially on Ulum al-Quran, where the gems are out there. I'm not talking about mathematical patterns. I'm talking about the beauty and the message that are embedded from the Quranic ayah in a very concise way. It's amazing. The sound and the resonance that when you hear, it resonates within your heart, within your mind when you read it, and you think it's just the tone. But actually, when you look at the message, what it's saying, then you can see how the message and the way it's delivered in the presentation is amazing. So they are called lataif al-Quran. There's the very subtleties in the Quran. Many books, unfortunately, they're mostly in Arabic. Okay, my personal interests are in those books. There's so many. There is some books available in English. I think there was one by Sheikh Dars, if I remember his name. The Quranic Phenomenon. I can remember a long time ago I read this. I still remember it, the way he analyzed it. But currently there is one book I have been reading for quite some time. It's Al-Mu'jiza by Dr. Bassam Sa'i, who presented in a very objective way the miracle of the Quran in the linguistics, the linguistic miracle. And this is also translated in an abridged form in English. Okay. So if you want to, I can give you the name of it later. It's a very different name. But these are books where one can study for a very long time, and it will be very interesting books to study. This particular one, Mu'jiza.
That's a beautiful answer, and I think that's a recommendation a lot of the people would like, because the minute we started speaking about books, more questions started coming up about books. There's one other question here which asks, is there specific seerah that you would recommend, a certain translation that you would recommend to the people?
I missed it. Seerah books.
Yeah.
And the biography of the Prophet, yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Sure. There are quite a few available. I personally can't recommend just one, because I've seen that you need to have a collection of these to get different, because every author presents it in their particular own way. Yeah. There are books written in English by Sheikh Mansur Numani, I think.
Yeah. The names don't come.
Shibli Numani, I think, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just giving you the names because I can't remember the author's name.
Yes.
Very good book. The books that you need to read also, what I can do later on, I can just send you the list.
Yes.
Books that has references. Any seerah book that is not based on our classical sources, our references, you shouldn't be even reading them, because many people are writing biographies and they don't give you any reference whatsoever. So in any book that you buy, that you're going to read, it must have appropriate referencing within it. So if it talks about history, where is this information coming from? Yeah. Rahiq al-Makhtoum, people say, is very useful, very concise. It's a very good book to use. If you're a beginner, you want to read about the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, start with that, because it's available in almost, different languages that we know people speak in English, Arabic as well, and Urdu, if I'm not mistaken. I've heard it's been translated in so many different languages. But my few particular ones, as I said, is a collection of books on biography. You cannot just simply go to Ibn Hisham's biography and think that's it. Because you have to look at the reports, because this is a classical work that was done, transmitted for later scholars to analyze and say the authenticity of the material that's been presented. Yes. But the books are available. Yeah. So modern works, definitely a collection, and I will inshallah pass on to you the names. So if I was downstairs, I could have just picked up from my shelf and say, this is the book. Like one of the book I was reading recently, I could have just shown you, read this book. This is of course not a biography. This is the book that when I went to Turkey, I requested. Yes, this is a manuscript facsimile of the one in Paris. Paris. Thanks to the brother Zakaria, who kindly obtained that book for me. It's an amazing. If you look at it, some of the books you love to read. So yes, definitely collection, meaning loads of them. Don't just focus on only one. Quite a few.
It's interesting that you would mention that, because there is a book I do read, and it's called basically How to Read a Book, right, by Professor Mortimer Adler. And he recommends, some people might think it's silly that you need to read a book on how to read a book, but basically he also suggests what you suggest, which is you have to read synoptically many books to really solidify the ideas that you're getting from one book. You can't just pick up one book and gain full context from that. So subhanAllah, a man who is renowned for his epistemology, Brother Mansur, you're recommending something that scholars themselves, Muslims and non-Muslim, recommend. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf recommended this book, and you recommend a similar idea that this book is premised upon. So may Allah reward you for that. So say, alhamdulillah, I'm next to my secondary bookshelves. When I'm doing my research, I have my main bookshelf, and on my desk I have my secondary bookshelf. I can just take and check my references. Now we do have another question for you. Our time is almost up. We only have 15 minutes left. So guys, get your questions in. 15 minutes and Brother Mansur is gone. He's not staying a minute longer. The show has to end in less than 15 minutes, inshallah. So the question I see is, what are your top tips for young du'ats who wish to do dawah?
Okay. First, the point to take on board is, I am not a sheikh. We're not shuyukh in Speaker's Corner, right? So we can only give you tips with dawah from our experience and from the very little that we know. Yeah. So I think this is a general statement that we should all make, so that people know that we are not scholars, right? So please don't look up to us as like we are scholars. If you consider us at least someone, a brother who inspires you, who motivates you, who encourages you to learn, alhamdulillah, we're very happy, we're very pleased with that. If we can somehow put a spark within you so you can go and learn more and explore more about the deen of Allah and practice it. Yeah, not just learn, and to practice it, apply it in your lives. Alhamdulillah, this is very, very, very dear to us. So having some experiences that we have in Speaker's Corner or elsewhere or from our learning, there are few essential things that one needs to understand. First of all, the first thing is intention. You have to get your intention correct. You can't do it for the wrong intention, because if you do it for the wrong intentions, all your effort will go in waste, go in vain. So you have to have the intention to please Allah, and thereby becoming maybe a good Muslim and inviting others to Islam. So you're being passionate in this cause, so that you look after the people, you care about people. Okay, so that shows like you're not just a very selfish individual. You want to also have the same guidance that you have for others. After the intention, you also have to have the knowledge that is required. So start gaining knowledge. If you want to give dawah, if you want to present something, imagine you want to present like a house to someone and saying this is a very beautiful house, and you don't know anything about it. You don't know how many rooms it has. You don't even know what color the doors or the walls are. You need to know about it, because the people that you are presenting it to, they need to know, and they need to have a clear understanding about for them to accept it. So Islam is such that people should have a clear understanding about. If you didn't have the understanding at the very beginning, yourself, then you can't present it. Okay, all you'll be presenting will be perhaps something that mixed with exaggerations, mixed with untrue statements, and so on and so forth. You're not there. We shouldn't be there to sugarcoat what Islam is. Islam is very clear. Islam is well documented. We don't have to somehow invent Islam to people. Yeah, we are only presenting it. That's what we are doing. So after your sincerity and intention, acquire the knowledge that is required. Yeah, at the same time, have the fear of Allah all the time, but you are actually doing it for His sake, for Allah's sake. And if you do that, then of course, inshallah, it will be something that is acceptable to Allah from you, as well as you will benefit others, because then you will see that all you're doing is you're trying to convey this call, so that people benefit. It's not because you are trying to benefit yourself only, you're trying to benefit others. So if we start from there, good intention, correct intention, acquiring the knowledge, and act on what we know. So if you're going to tell people, Islam says don't lie, and guess what? You lie left, right, and center every day. How is this acceptable? So you have to, again, as I said from before, you have to change your character. We have to change our character. This is me now. We have to modify ourselves internally and externally and present it. And then even if we didn't know much enough to express, some people don't even know how, even have good English to express themselves. Yet they're doing dawah from their character. People see them, and that's enough. That's sufficient. People accept it just because of their character, and
Well,
that's how it should be.
yes, well, Brother Mansur, a lot of the comments are saying basically that your patience and your kindness, but yet your resolute firmness when it comes to Islam is something that the people don't just generally admire about you, but it's one of the reasons that they watch your videos because quite a lot of the individuals, not a lot, but some few of the individuals from Speakers Corner that do go there for the entertainment. They go to cause a bit of drama, get some views. But you don't go there for the views. You go there to spread the message of Islam first and foremost. And like I said, I've had the ability to travel a bit, and almost everywhere I went, they were looking out and watching you guys and then learning from you. So the way that you present yourself, I think, is very important. And it's good to see you sending this message because far too many people think you need to scream and shout, cast aspersions on others, when it comes to apologetics, to counter negative things about Islam. When really, if you're a kind and good-hearted individual, especially with your akhlaq, the people will notice that. So may Allah reward you for that, especially. Um, now, just we have a lot of comments coming through, but this is just a message to the chat stream, which is we do apologize if you were having issues with the mods deleting too many comments. Not everyone is fully experienced, and they are good brothers who are just trying to help. It's our second time doing this, so inshallah we will try to improve the next time and the next, inshallah. But we are seeing your messages, and I will be asking the questions to Brother Mansur. A quick shout out to the brother who just donated $23. May Allah reward you sincerely. That's Brother AK Somali, so may Allah reward him. Now, Brother Mansur, we do have an interesting question for you. You may know who this question is from. And the question is, I've seen Hashim and the others who went Turkey with their furry hats. Where is yours?
I think I just have to wait for the next weather round to come to wear one when I get one.
Oh my goodness. Again, also another thank you to another donator, Authentic Message. He comments, we really don't have Islamic model of a country for people to look up to or to take an example from. Generally, I would agree with that, but this show is not about politics. It's about Dawah, so let's stick to that, inshallah. And the brother Swiss Dawah, you're deleting way too many comments, my friend. May Allah reward you for your good intentions, but you can ease up with the deleting of the comments, inshallah. Now, Brother Mansur, let's change gear a bit here because we only have about 8 minutes left and we're running out of time. So I want to reminisce a bit about the time we met and the fun that we had. One of the things behind the scenes is that people don't really realize how vertically challenged you may be, because I'm a very short individual myself. And I'm thinking, when I reach London, I have to look up and speak to all of these brothers. But mashallah, you're all my height. In fact, I was able to put my hands around your shoulders and hug you all. So I felt right at home. I did not have any complaints in that regard. And a lot of the people watching, like I say, they don't get to meet you all personally. And so just being able to spend time with you, learn from you. I've known you for quite a long time, I would say. And behind the scenes, whenever I have a question or something I'm uncertain about, you always set aside the time to explain things to me clearly and proficiently. And you go step by step with me. You don't degrade me. You don't say, Ijaz, come on, it's 2019 and you don't know this is yet. I've never had a comment like that from you, which goes to show that a lot of the brothers and sisters out there, if someone doesn't know something, don't speak down to them. Lift them up, encourage them to learn. Don't put them down. All too often, a person might read a book or two and they think they have all the knowledge in the world. And it is not a good habit of a Muslim. We are here to do what is called khidmah.
Can I just make quick one point about something about Speaker's Corner? Often people don't realize because our brothers and sisters who are elsewhere, friends in humanity, they're watching it from across the globe nowadays, thanks to SCDawah and various other Dawah channels. Speaker's Corner, many people come regularly, and we have spoken to them, so many different times, and often we've just left them because there's no point in continuing discussions. But oftentimes what happens is the same individuals will come and start heckling us, and we don't respond. And I've noticed sometimes people, comment why I'm not answering their questions, and it's quite simple because we have answered the questions, so many different times, so many different ways. They never listen. They only come here to deflect the conversation that we're having. When I say deflect, it's actually change the course of conversation to something totally different, because they've noticed that we are having a good conversation. I don't want that. It's the envy and the jealousy. Often also people notice that we don't give all the textbook responses. Like, why don't you respond to that? You should have said this way and that way. You have to contextualize the environment, the discussion, and see what few points is sufficient. Because you can bring in, for example, if you're talking to a Christian, you can bring in, all these different verses together to disprove a particular notion, for example. All you need is just to focus on one and carry on. And we might often use that regularly, or change the verses that you use, rather than every single time use those 10 verses or 20 verses. Yeah. So if our brothers and sisters are thinking, why aren't we responding as they expect, is because we are assessing the individual and the need of the individual, and gearing our response as best as we can assess to the need of the individual, and deliver it that way, rather than answering everything. And that's why one of the things that I don't do is people throw in questions, by the person you're speaking to, and other persons that are coming to interrupt. Keep focused. This is what I tend to do, I'd like to do. Keep focus on the conversation that you are having, and don't lose track. So there's no point answering all these side questions. You're talking about something, and then they bring about something demeaning the character of the Prophet ﷺ, for example, or insulting him. And you feel like at that point you need to respond, but we don't, and I don't. Just carry on with the same focus, and ignore. And this is very difficult. When you say patience, I tell you, it requires a long time, and a lot of dua that you have to make personally with perseverance to be patient that way, because you have to have a thick skin. Imagine, can you be a believer? You cannot be a believer, a true mu'min, if you did not love Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you did not love Allah more than your own self, more than your parents, and they come and insult our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they come and insult Allah. You really have to have thick skin. I mean, you boil inside, but of course, you have to just let it go. You have to, totally get rid of your anger, and the frustration that you see, and just focus, just for the benefit of the individual. And it's very difficult. And people, when they're from outside, from a different country, they don't realize that this is what you're experiencing it. If you were there yourself personally, you would feel like actually starting a fight. And that's what many people do, because they can't handle it. So we ask our brothers and sisters to continuously make dua for us, so that we can be more and more patient, more and more humble, more and more, in a way that we control, our anger inside, and we don't even notice them, in a way, so that we can continue to do dawah in a nice way, so that people appreciate, rather than just responding back to the insults that people come. I mean, there are going to be insults. What can we do? People resort to these insults. If sometimes I remember this. Just want to very quickly to say that I'm not sure where I learned from. If a dog bites you, are you going to bite the dog? Think about it. Think about it. If you think about it, then I think, yeah, exactly. I mean, if someone insults you, why am I going to insult them? So, all we can say is, may Allah open their hearts, may Allah open our hearts closer and closer, so that we can actually come to the realization, come to the truth.
Indeed. But Brother Mansur, we're out of time, but we have one last question. So if you can just squeeze that in, I know we're almost out of time, but one last question. The person asks, how can we explain that Allah is independent of the creation? How do we convey this message specifically to a non-Muslim? Very briefly, if you can.
It's very, very difficult, as you know from me. I mean, I'm trying all my best to be concise, but I normally like a detailed explanation. How is Allah independent? If Allah is one and He's eternally existing, then He has to be independent. If you think about His existence on its own, if He existed without a beginning, what that means is there was no one there to bring Him into existence. If there was no one or nothing to bring Him into existence, then His existence is what we say totally independent, and He is self-subsistent. That if you didn't come from somewhere or something, you existed by yourself, then you're not dependent on anyone for your life. And if you exist without a beginning, all that you have inherently, your attributes and your characteristics, they are eternal with you, and they must be perfect, because there will be no one or nothing to restrict your perfection, restrict your absolute nature of your character or your attribute. So you will be not only independent, but you'll be absolute at the same time. And being absolute at the same time, you'll also be someone who there will be no likeness whatsoever. You'll be totally unique. And this is where Surah Al-Ikhlas tells us about this message. So time to reflect on this surah, where we can actually see this message about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Brother Mansur, Jazak Allah Khair for your time, for answering the questions. There were so many questions that we could not cover. I think we only got to maybe like 1 out of 10 of every question that was asked. They were constantly streaming in. I know it's time to leave. So Brother Mansur, do you have any parting message before we wrap up?
We would like to know from our brothers and sisters and from our well-wishers around the world, give us your constructive feedback, how we can correct ourselves, how we can rectify ourselves as people who are trying to give Islam, presenting Islam to the people. We would like your constructive feedback, criticisms, and advice and tips. I mean, I know one of my tips is just to make it concise, smile to the people. But we would really appreciate your comments, your feedback to us, because we don't know when you're out there. This is like a wild jungle sometimes, and to focus in a particular way, your advice and your criticisms, constructive ones, we really appreciate it. So please send them to Ijaz and Naveed and wherever they can reach us, inshallah.
Inshallah. So Brother Mansur, Jazak Allah Khair for your time and for answering all these questions. We look forward to having you on the show again, inshallah. Who knows, but we would definitely love to have you back. A quick shout out to the messages. Any comments or suggestions you may have, you can send them to SCDawah@gmail.com. SCDawah@gmail.com. Send your comments, your suggestions. Lastly, we do apologize if the moderators in the chat deleted too many questions. They were, overworked, and Allah knows best, they're good intended. But we will try to improve our services as time goes on. So guys, thank you for joining us. I'm going to wrap up this episode. Assalamu alaikum, and see you all soon.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah to you, Ijaz.